Hi everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create text on a path in Affinity. We're going to look at both a simple curved line as well as double lines of text along a closed shape. Are you ready? Let's get started. I've created a simple curved path and I want to add some text that follows along the shape of the curve. Now one note, as soon as you add text to a path, that path is going to disappear. So if you want to maintain a visible curve or you want to keep one as a backup, you'll need to duplicate the shape before you add text to it. I've already done that here and I've locked it in a background. To add text to the curve, I'm going to select the artistic text tool. This doesn't work with the frame text tool. And to engage text on the path, I'll first select the path itself, and then I'm going to hover over the line until I get this T with a curved line underneath it. I'll click and it's going to add a cursor to the line wherever I clicked. Now you'll notice, again, the line disappeared. And now I have these two handles in place, a green one on the left and an orange one on the right. This is the start handle and this is the end handle. These two handles are going to determine the placement of the text on the path and they are movable. We'll talk more about those in a moment, but let's go ahead and add some text first. Now if I zoom in, you can see that while it's very small, I do have a blinking cursor here on the path. I'm going to go ahead and format the text first and then I'll type out my line. So I'll go up to the top here and I'm going to change the font to Farmhouse Vintage. This is a font I downloaded from Creative Fabrica and I'll link it below. And I'm going to change the size to 144 and then type out some text and watch what happens when I get to the end of the line. So I'll type out text on a simple curved path. Because it got to that red flag at the end, it automatically pushed it to the bottom of the line and started heading in the other direction. The other thing that happened is I have two more flags. Now I have a dark green one here on the right. Again, it's still a start. And I have a dark red one on the left, and that's the end. And that's specifically for the bottom part of the line. Now this light green handle is always going to be placed wherever I click it, while the light red one is always going to be at the end of the line. I'm going to drag this back to the beginning of the line just to get a start on pulling everything to the top. It helped a little bit, but not a lot, so I'm going to format the text further. I'm going to select all of my text with a Command or Control A, and I'll head up to the top here and change this to 120 points. That's going to pull all of my text up to the top line, but I have some serious issues with the spacing, not just between the words, but in some cases between the individual letters themselves. So I'm going to adjust two settings, the tracking between the words and the kerning between the letters. You can change these settings two ways. You can go up to the top here and open up your character panel, and you can change the tracking in this second option and the kerning in the first, or you can use keyboard shortcuts. To change the tracking, which is what I'm going to start with first, I'm going to select the words that I want to correct, and that's specifically curved and path. So I'm going to click before the C and shift click after path so it just selects those two words. Now I can either use this slider or I can hold down Alt or Option and use the left arrow key. That's going to move it in 10% increments. And I specifically want to get them closer together. All right, now doing that, you can see that I have even more of an issue with my kerning, and that's the space between the individual letters. So I'm going to adjust those first, and I'm going to start on the left side, because as I increase the kerning, you're going to find that the rest of the line starts shifting as well. So you can see there's no space here between the T and the E. So I'm going to place my cursor between the two of them. Again, I can either drag on this slider here. If I want to be more precise with 10% increments, though, I can hold down Alt or Option and use my right arrow key. And I'm going to do that. So I'll go ahead and hit, let's try 110. I'm not going to fuss too much with this for the purposes of this tutorial, but just know that you could spend time going between the letters and just updating what you need to. So I think on looks good, simple looks good. I'm going to put some space between the C and the U here, and then the U and the R. And you can see why I started on the left, and it's because it's pushing everything to the right. If I started on the right, I would have to keep going back and adjusting text. All right, again, I could spend a lot of time adjusting this, but you get the point. So you can start with the tracking or the kerning and just adjust your words and the individual letters. An additional adjustment that I can make is to the path itself. So let's say that I want to get the end of this line closer to the end of the line itself, to the end of the path. What I'm going to do is hold down Command on my keyboard And I'm going to hover over this control point on the right side and just start dragging to the left. By holding Command or Control down, it's going to move the width evenly on both sides. And I can just push this to where I want. And I think I'll stop there. And then I'm just going to back up and see if anything needs to be corrected. So you can see that when I did that, the T and the H got closer together. Now I don't need to open up the character panel to use the keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to hold Alt or Option down and just adjust the kerning between this. And I think these two can be a little closer together. Same with the V and the E. And let's push this out just a touch. So as you adjust things, it's just a matter of adjusting the letters and then the spacing between the words as well. Now, if I wanted to, I could also pull this away from the path a little bit, and that's called the baseline. So with the entire line selected, so I used Command or Control A, I can go up to the top here, and I can just move this down to pull it closer to the line, or I can move it to the negative to pull it away from the line. So I'm going to leave that at 0 because I'm actually fine with where it was. The other thing I can do is reverse it. So I can just hit this reverse button and it's going to pop it down to the bottom line instead. But obviously I want this up at the top. Now that we've looked at the simple curve, let's take a look at how this would work with a closed shape. Before I do anything else, I'm going to reset my text. I'm likely going to use the same settings as the curved path, but just so I don't run into any issues with where I place my cursor and the size of the font, I'm going to start fresh. So with nothing selected, I'll head up to the Edit menu at the top, down to Defaults, and choose Revert. And that's going to change my font back to the default, which is Arial 12 point. The basics of working with an elliptical path or any closed shape are the same as a simple open path, but there are some additional things to note. First, the placement of the text on a closed shape is going to depend not only on where you click on the path, but on which side of the path you click on. So let me zoom in here and I'll select my ellipse. If I hover over the inside of the line and click, you can see that my cursor is added inside of the shape. If I hover over the outside and click, it's going to add it to the outside, which in this case is where I want it. Now you can see that I have my handles back, but they're slightly skewed because of where I clicked on the ellipse. I want both of these to be at the horizontal middle of the ellipse, but I don't have to drag them separately. Instead, I'm going to click to select one of them. I'll hold down Shift, and when I do that, they'll both move at the same time. And because I have snappings on at the top, you can see there's snapping to those control points along the ellipse, and I get those little red markers letting me know I'm exactly where I want to be. Now, ultimately, I'm going to add 2 lines of text, but I'm going to do that without having to create 2 shapes. I'll format my text first, and then I'm going to type my upper line. So I'll go back up here, and I'm going to change this to Farmhouse Vintage. And again, I'll change this to 144 and just type out text on an elliptical shape. Now, I don't want to have to hit the space bar to get to this end so that it forces it down, but I do want to go to that second line of text. So what I'm going to do is hit either Enter or Return on my keyboard, and that's going to automatically move the cursor to the next line. And as soon as I start typing, you can see I also get those 2 additional flags. So I'm going to type out text on an elliptical shape. I'm going to move those handles the same way that I did the first 2. So I'll just click to select this green one, hold Shift down, and I'm going to move those until they snap to the horizontal center of the ellipse. Now, neither of these lines are centered, but I don't want to use the handles to move them because I want to be more precise. So what I'm going to do instead is click into my text, Command A to select all of my text. And I'm going to go up to the contextual menu at the top here and choose Center Align. Now I'm almost there, but you can see that my bottom line of text is kind of squished, and it's because it's on the inside of the shape. I want it to run along the outside just like the top, and that's where baseline is going to come in again. So I'm going to click to the left side of that line and then shift click to the right side just to select that. You can create different baselines for different path sections by selecting the specific text and changing the baseline just for that selection. So with that selected, I'll go up to the top here and I'm going to start dragging up so that it moves out and move it outside of the ellipse until it's where I want it. So about, I think I'll say 70%. Now from here, I want to make sure that my text on both lines is set as far as kerning and tracking. So just taking a look at the bottom one, since I just changed that, I think there's a little bit too much space between the C and the A here. If you look at it up here, it's a little different. So I'm going to click inside of there. Again, I don't need to open up my character panel. I'm just going to hold down Alt or Option and then just left arrow to pull that in a little bit. I'm not going to fuss too much on this, but I do want to adjust a few things here. So I think the A and the H can come closer together. And I think the spacing between the actual words, the tracking is fine. So I'm going to leave that alone. But let me look up here. I think there could be a little bit more space between the I and the P, and probably the H and the A. All right, again, I could spend time on this, but for the purposes of the tutorial, I'm going to say this looks good and call this done. Just like with the open path, I can change the shape that I'm working with, and the text is going to flow with it. So I could select this and I could drag up from the bottom to create a horizontal oval. I can go from the sides and hold down Command so that it changes it evenly and create a vertical one. I can also reduce the size of the circle. So I can grab this and hold down Shift. Now, as I do that, it's going to push the text closer together. If I want to do that without impacting where the text is sitting, I can use this outer handle here and just start to drag in. And you can see that the font size is changing, but the placement of the actual text is staying where it's at. Now, one caution, if you want to be able to adjust the nodes on a shape to change the flow of the text, you're going to need to convert the shape to a curve before you add the text. Shape layers are not curves, therefore they have to be converted before you can use the node tools. If you do that after this text is added, it's going to convert the text to curves as well, meaning you can no longer edit it. Now, while you can't use node tools on an unconverted shape, you can use the contextual settings with the shapes themselves. So I'm going to select my ellipse and hit A on my keyboard. And at the top here, you can see I have two options for this ellipse shape. I can convert it to a donut or a pie shape. I'm going to click donut. And not only do I get those control handles that you would get with any other shape, I get a second level of text that I can access simply by hitting enter or return after this last line. So I'm going to drag this out to about here, and I'll select my text at this top line with Command or Control C. I'll copy it. I'm going to click after the last line and hit enter, and that's going to take me to this second level. Now, the text that I paste is going to be too big, but I'll adjust it. I'm going to Command or Control V, and I want to select just that text. So I'll click before the T, and I'll shift click after the E on shape. And I'm just going to bring that to maybe 96. And then I can Command or Control C to copy it. And once again, I want to bring myself down to this line. So I'm putting my cursor after that line and hitting enter. And now I can Command or Control V to paste that. But again, I need to change my baseline just like I did with this one. So I'm going to select that, and I can go up to the top here and just drag that out. Now, if I want to, I can deselect this, select the shape and hit A, and I can still adjust this. So if I want to bring that closer together, I can do that by dragging on the control points. And now I have 4 lines of text on a single shape. If you have any questions about what was covered in this tutorial or a suggestion for a topic, let me know in the discussion below. I have lots more Affinity tutorials and classes in the works, but in the meantime, you might want to check out one of these two next. Thanks for watching.